Howdy y'all, it's your boy King Jiffy Coates, and today we're going to be taking another look at an incredible individual. In fact, one of my favorite country singers to ever grace the microphone. Waylon Jennings was a man forged in the hard scrabble earth of West Texas, a land of wide open spaces and winds that cut to the bone. He came into the world in 1937, born on a tenant farm near Littlefield, a place where a man's worth was measured not by his words, but by the calluses on his hand and the grit in his soul. Young Waylon learned the guitar at an early age, and soon enough he found his voice, a deep, resonant rumble that carried the dust and longing for the plains. He was a wanderer, a man forever on the move. Dropping out of school, he found work as a disc jockey in Lubbock, where he crossed paths with a young firebrand named Buddy Holly. Holly, a pioneer of a new kind of sound called rock and roll, took the young man under his wing, producing his first single and bringing him on as a bassist for the band. It was a fateful journey that would shape Jennings' life in a way that he could never have foreseen. In 1959, on a cold winter's night, Jennings gave up his seat on a small plane to J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson. The plane went down in a frozen Iowa cornfield.
Couldn't sleep on there, couldn't get any rest, and all our clothes were dirty. We smelled like billy goats. Buddy had chartered this plane for me and him, and Tommy also.
Come over that Buddy Holly and his band had been killed outside of Clear Lake, Iowa. And of course, everything just melted. And I took off to the house. Of course, Mama was in tears, and naturally everything was just up. Bottom side upwards, everything had gone.
But a few hours later, Waylon called his mother to tell her he was still alive. In fact, he had never gotten on the plane. Before the plane took off, Waylon was approached by J.P. Richardson, known as the Big Bopper.
He said, "Listen, would you mind me taking your place on that plane?" He said, "Because I've had the flu, I'm sick, and I've got to get over there and get some rest." And I said, "If it's okay with Buddy, it's okay with me." And here I am, about 19 years old, and I said, "Yeah, well, I hope your old plane crashes." And God almighty, for years I thought I caused it,
A tragedy that would forever be etched in Jennings' mind, leaving him with a haunted sorrow that would echo through his music for years to come. The loss of Holly was a ghost that followed him, but it did not break this man. He drifted, working in Phoenix and forming a band called the Wailers, a group that played with a raw, unvarnished energy that was all their own. It was a sound that caught the ear of Bobby Bare, who in turn tipped off the legendary Chet Atkins at RCA Records. Jennings rode into Nashville in 1965, a man of fire and ambition, but he found a town that wanted to tame him.
All of my life, I would listen to the Grand Ole Opry. And I wanted to come to Nashville, That was my big dream. And I did, I came here one time about 6 months before I recorded, and it was very closed society. It was very cold toward it. But then when they wanted me here and asked me to come here, then they were really just excited, and everybody says, "We love you." But I found out pretty quick that's not necessarily true. Record companies are big corporations, and you are a number in a computer. Now, if that computer kicks your number out, you're in trouble. But my problem is I had ideas of my own, and they weren't used to that a lot. There were a few of them that did, but and I've always been able, when I find a song, if I like that song, I can tell you, and I can see in my mind a picture, and actually of how it will be when I get through and how it will sound. That's what I have. I have my own ideas, and I've always had those. Well, that was kind of foreign to them, They didn't have that many people that had that many ideas, and I just wanted a little freedom. I didn't want to sound like everybody else, I had my own sound singing, but and I liked things with an edge, something that really, rocking a little bit. Not to change as much as just to, to broaden the base of country music. I always said why, and why was not a welcome word in Nashville when I came here. When I wanted to do something, they'd say, well, you can't do that. And I'd always say, why?
The Nashville sound of the day was smooth and polished, a sound that put musicians in the background and singers in the front. And Jennings chafed against it like a wild horse in a tight corral. He wanted to make his own music with his own band, and he fought tooth and nail for that right. This was the beginning of a great rebellion, the spark that lit the outlaw fire. Along with his friend Willie Nelson, another man who refused to be tamed by the music row machine, Waylon challenged the system. He demanded control over his music, from the songs he chose to the musicians he played with. This was a direct shot at the heart of the Nashville establishment, and it made him a pariah to some, but a hero to many. The result was a new kind of country music, a sound that blended the rawness of honky-tonk with the grit and rebellion of rock and roll. His albums, like Honky Tonk Heroes and Lonesome, Ornery and Mean, weren't just records, they were manifestos. The outlaw movement was a systemic shift in the music industry. It gave artists a new kind of freedom and allowed for a new authenticity. This movement reached its pinnacle with the compilation album Wanted, The Outlaws, which featured Jennings, Willie Nelson, Jessie Coulter, his wife, a fiery artist in her own right, and Tom Paul Glasser. This was a runaway success, becoming the first country album in history to go platinum, selling over 1 million copies. But the outlaw life, while it brought him fame and fortune, also had its dark side. The same rebellious spirit that had fueled his music also led him down a dangerous path. He developed a crippling cocaine habit, a $1,500 a day monster that he struggled with for years. The consequences of this lifestyle were many, from strained relationships to a very public arrest in 1977 when the DEA raided a Nashville studio on suspicion of him possessing cocaine. The charges were eventually dropped due to a faulty warrant, but the incident was a stark reminder that the outlaw moniker could carry a heavy price. Jennings himself would later immortalize this event in his song, "Don't You Think This Outlaw Bit's Done Got Out of Hand." In the end, Waylon Jennings was a man of contradictions, a rebellious spirit who fought the system, and yet a man who in his later years would earn his GED to set an example for his son. A man who battled his demons, but found redemption and new success in his supergroup, the Highwaymen, alongside his comrades Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, and Chris Christopherson, who he seemed to always be at odds with. Which Willie Nelson used to say he just was happy that Chris was there so that him and Waylon would stop arguing. He was a pioneer, a stubborn son of a Texas soil who never forgot where he came from, and whose music, raw and honest and true, will forever stand as a testament to a man who lived and died by his own rules.
What originally attracted you to country music, and what is country music to you anyway?
You know, I've tried to find a time in my life that I thought, well, I want to be a country singer, and I just can't find a place. I was born one. That was something I was born with. Music's always been one of the most important things in my whole life, as it is in most of the people that come from West Texas, because I think it was a kind of a release. Music was a big release for people who lived there, because we all worked hard all week long, and on Sunday we'd go to church, and Sunday afternoon they'd have what they call, we get little get-togethers, and somebody played guitar, somebody played fiddle, or somebody played piano. So I was around music all my life. My mom and dad both played guitar, and my dad played harmonica, and just music was always the most important thing to me. I couldn't put a time on at all of when I said, I'm going to be a singer. It just always was that. It was just a foregone conclusion.
This has been my riveting tale of Waylon Jennings. I hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I did. I know it was short and sweet, but hey, I can't always give you every information on every album that was ever made. Sometimes you just need to know a little about the man and the music. Let me know what you think. What are some of your favorite Waylon Jennings stories? Maybe you have something that I've never heard of. I'd be more than happy to go and take a look at it. Until next time, make sure to leave me a like and subscribe, and stop gooning in the closet.